Chinese peasants.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just.
It's no secret that there's a lot of tension between the US and Chinese government right now, and as a result, there's kind of a revolution currently happening on TikTok. Chinese manufacturers are basically pulling back the curtain and exposing some of the biggest household name brands we all know and recognize, allegedly get their products made in China and how much they allegedly are paying to get them manufactured before slapping on a massive markup to sell. And these videos are going viral. Check this one out.
Who are the suppliers behind Lululemon? Some of their yoga wears are actually from Xianglong Clothing and Huangqisheng Clothing. And guess what? Both factories are located in Yiwu here. And these two factories also supply clothing for Fila and Under Armour. I guess most of you know the price of Lululemon or other big brands. They sell you a legging pants for $100. And guess what? Here in these two factories, you can get them for around $5 to $6. Crazy. And what's even better? The material and the craftsmanship are basically the same because they all come from the same production line. See, this is why people come to China and looking for the OEM factory because they just can get the cheapest and best quality product from there and sell you I don't know how much. Alright guys, if you want to know more about Lululemon or any other active wear brands, leave your message in the comment section. I'm Luna, your reliable sausage hunter.
So we're going to go over why this is happening, what exactly this campaign is, and yes, it's definitely a campaign, if these claims being made are true, and what the catch is. Now, before we get into the video, I want to mention that the nature of the content we're going to be exploring is inherently political. And listen, I know we all have our opinions on politics, and I'm down for conversation in the comments, but please keep it kind and respectful. I'm not a political channel. My content focuses on social media trends, news, culture, etc. But sometimes the things I talk about are wrapped in politics because the things happening on social media are a reflection of what's going on in our larger world. So again, conversation is encouraged, but be kind. Now, on to the video. Before we get into the social media stuff, I just want to quickly break down the whole tariff situation because honestly, up until I did my research on it, the conversation sounded like this.
The more the market rate influx cybersecurity stock trust fund decreases, you have to work on the interest rates and decrease it.
Basically, a tariff is a tax that one country puts on stuff coming in from another country. Let's say you've got two countries, so the United States and China. China has manufacturers that make microphones, and the US has businesses that import them so that they can be sold throughout the country in stores like Best Buy, Target, Amazon storefronts, etc. Then one day, the United States government decides to put a tariff on those mics coming in from China, which means that the US businesses buying from China now have to pay an extra tax just to bring them into the country because the government said so. Now, this is the part that had me confused for a minute. Like, why would we tax ourselves on the things we're already buying from another country? Doesn't that just add a really unnecessary expense that'll ultimately make things more expensive? And yeah, the answer is yes. And the logic behind this is that by making it more expensive for US businesses to import products from China, it'll incentivize those US businesses to take those orders within the US from US manufacturers instead. It's basically the government's way of saying buy local. But here lies the problem. While some manufacturing takes place here, there are a lot of things that just simply aren't manufactured here, and we don't currently have the setup and labor force to fully support that in the immediate future. So what actually happens is that US businesses are still going to continue to buy from China, and they'll pay the tariffs, but those tariff expenses are then going to be passed on to the consumer, making their products more expensive, so the business can continue making profit. Now, this whole Trump placing tariffs on Chinese imports conversation didn't start in 2025. It actually began in 2018 when Trump first started putting tariffs on Chinese imports into effect, which was a pretty big conflict back then. And some even argue that it's the beginning of the current trade war between the US and China, because China started imposing tariffs against us as well. And then just like fast forward until now in 2025, and well, we're here, and being the United States tariffing Chinese imports at 145%, China is now tariffing US imports at 125%. And in case you're wondering, the things China usually imports from the US are things like soybeans, medical equipment, vaccines, etc. And if you take the two and compare the value of products imported between each country, China produces significantly more value at about 381 billion. And ultimately, that's where the contention lies between the US government and China. The US basically has a problem with the trade imbalance, and they don't like that China holds more weight in manufacturing. And at the same time, the sky is blue and water is wet, right? Like the US being deeply involved in global affairs and wanting to compete with and one up the next country in the name of protecting democracy and securing itself as a superpower is a very United States thing to do. But if you think about it, China's technically doing the American thing by making a capitalistic move and positioning itself to benefit off an opportunity, and that opportunity being that the United States scaled back manufacturing in the 80s and 90s when it realized that it's much cheaper to make things overseas, especially during a time when globalization and an independent trade system was starting to come alive. It's literally creating the supply to meet the demand.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs won't ship your job to China. Not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crashed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, and mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodge tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flag the wave probably made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs fit your lies while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for a mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
Now, on to the content of this. Obviously, there's going to be consequences when you start going crazy with tariffs, because between the United States tariffs and the retaliatory ones from China, trade between manufacturers and US businesses just got a lot more expensive. And so in response to those tariffs, we're witnessing Chinese manufacturers come together and basically deploy a around and find out social media campaign. And if you've been on social media lately, TikTok to be specific, I'm not even gonna say probably, you've definitely seen multiple videos from manufacturers in China calling out brands and the manufacturing process that they allegedly take part in. It's literally one video after the other. Like I think at one point when I was scrolling on TikTok, I saw like 5 of these videos and some even back to back within like a 15 video scroll. Like I cannot stress how saturated TikTok has been with these videos. Like whenever I'm doing research and gathering content that comes from TikTok for like these types of videos that I make, what I like to do is create a collection where I save every and basically any video I find relevant to the topic at hand. And I managed to collect over 50 TikToks to refer back to for this video within like 2 times of me opening the TikTok app. So what's the goal for these manufacturers? What is the purpose of these videos? There's 2 of them. The first is to just expose the huge markup on the products that people purchase. Obviously, we all know brands need to make a profit, right? Like you sell something for more than it costs to make. That's business 101. But what these videos are specifically doing is highlighting just how little these brands are allegedly paying to have their products made and comparing that to the prices you see when you come across the same products online or on store shelves. It's one thing for someone to say, hey, this pack of socks that you're buying are sold at a premium, so the brand that you're buying from can profit. And another thing to say, I charge the brand you're buying this pack of socks from $1 to make them, and they're selling them to you for $45. Obviously, the latter is going to be a much more impactful way of like framing that situation, which leads to the second goal of this whole campaign, cutting out the middleman and attracting you as a buyer. Most of us who are internet savvy and aware of how business and the internet works knows that we've actually been able to buy products directly from manufacturers like these for a minute. You know, Alibaba, AliExpress, Temu, even the TikTok shop, because this bag was $30 last week and is now the price of a slice of pizza videos on TikTok, are able to push product at such a lower price point because they're coming directly from the manufacturer. It's literally drop shipping through TikTok, which I think even goes against their terms of service, but people find a way to do whatever. So by making buyers aware of the fact that they can skip the premium price tag and buy essentially the same product or a similar product directly from the people that make them, these manufacturers are essentially cutting out the middlemen, aka the businesses that we buy these products from in the first place. And if successful and people start actually buying directly from manufacturers instead of businesses, it could really disrupt the market. And if it goes far enough, it could create enough of a loss for the middlemen, some of which are even publicly traded companies. And if these companies take enough of a hit, they've got the money, influence, and potential lobbying power to turn around and ask the United States government to step in and basically turn down the tariffs, which, let's be real, could work considering how business-driven a lot of US policy tends to be. And in case you're wondering what the opinion on the street about this whole campaign drop is, people are here for it. They're eating it up.
I have been on the Chinese supplier side of TikTok and I'm loving it. They are basically like, we know that people generally knew that their stuff was being marked up and we never said anything about it as a courtesy. You know what I'm saying? As a courtesy, is to not harm your brands. However, you want to bite the hand that feeds you? No. Now we're going to show everyone exactly where all of your things are made. We're going to talk to the people who make all of those things. We're going to tell you how much those things actually cost as a finished product. I just saw one where my man said I can get 20 laundry pods for $1. $1? Do you know how much Tide is charging me for laundry pods? I saw another one and this woman's pulling out Louis Vuitton bags like, oh, this is $2. This is $2. $2? Yeah, you got me. Cut the middleman out. And I'm watching every video. Because next thing I need to find out is how to get it right from the source.
And even going so far as trying to ideate about how to work around minimum order quantities and make bulk orders together.
Okay, I know we see all these Chinese manufacturer videos. I'm loving it, love the pettiness, right? But I thought of this idea. So a lot of them have order minimum quantities. Like it has to be an order minimum of 100 or 500 that you have to place in order to make it worthwhile for them to ship, right? What if we came together as the American people who might want to buy something? Like I just saw a video about laundry pods. So you have a buying group. And I think for this idea, it would have to be a buying group in the same state within a similar vicinity. If not, maybe somebody could organize shipping or whatever, but that's just follow me. So you have a buying group. And whether it's a grocery store, someone's, representing a grocery store in the group, whether someone's just representing their household, you put your money up, contact these manufacturers like, hey, I have a group of people. This is our order that we want to place. It meets your order minimum. You guys go in and you put up your money and you divide it up based on, whatever you want to divide it up. If it's going to be equal, if it's going to be however much you're trying to buy, whatever. But not everyone can meet the order minimum of at least 100 pieces or units from a lot of these manufacturers. It's just an idea, just something throwing it out there because this is about to change the game.
And it's even going beyond just manufacturing in China. The conversation has also opened up other conversations about what it's like to live in China, specifically highlighting things like healthcare, housing.
I'm in China right now, and this is how a lot of my conversations go. You guys don't have a homelessness issue here, but we have a homelessness issue in North America because a lot of people, if they lose their job or get sick and they can't get another job immediately, they'll be homeless. Oh, but the government will help, right? No, the government won't really help. That's why they're homeless. So government doesn't help and just homeless? Just homeless. So how do you get home again? It's really difficult. Some people are able to get into shelters, some aren't. Some people have family, a lot of people don't, especially if they're in the foster care system. So basically they just are homeless. They're homeless forever? Yes, and some of them have to commit crimes, sell drugs, or do other things. Oh my God.
Transportation.
So I just got back to New York City from my trip to China, and here is what a subway looks like in the most expensive city on the planet, and here is what the subway looks like in Shanghai. Just thought I would show you guys that.
And more. Now, it's one thing to say something, and it's another for it to be true, right? Especially if it sounds too good to be true, which begs the question or questions, are these brands really manufacturing all of their products in China at such a small price? And is there a catch for skipping the middlemen and buying directly from the source? The answer to the first question is yes and no. Some brands do manufacture their products in China, like Apple, Microsoft, and other tech companies, as well as brands across the clothing industry, the cosmetics industry, the toy industry. The list goes on. And on the other hand, some brands don't manufacture their products in China. Some really do manufacture their products where they say they do, like Hermes. And some get their products manufactured in Vietnam or Indonesia or India. But even then, a very large percentage of products manufactured globally are manufactured in China. To that end, however, that doesn't mean that every single brand you see has their products manufactured in any of these countries, if at all. There are obviously still companies that do like to keep the craftsmanship of their goods as close to home as possible. And even then, even if there are brands that are manufacturing their products in China, there's a spectrum on which those manufacturers exist. Some of them make products that are like Shein and Temu quality, and others make products that require very sophisticated and artisan craftsmanship, the same level of craftsmanship that you would get from Italy or France. And I say the same level, I want to emphasize that because it's truly the same level of craftsmanship. It's just that level of craftsmanship done in China. And I want to make that clear because unfortunately there's like these implicit biases that people have around products coming from China being cheaper. And that's not necessarily always the case. But anyway, I say all of this to say that whether it's a good dupe or the real thing just without the logo, because there are so many manufacturing plants in China that make so many of the same products, the hard part is finding the ones that have the product in the quality that you're looking for. Which leads us to the second question. What's the catch? Because this almost feels too good to be true. And it isn't, and it is at the same time. Like, there are pros and cons to this whole system. And because so much information and so much of a narrative and plot can get very easily misconstrued and taken out of context on social media, I think it's important to look at the whole campaign with motivation and curiosity and have some questions about the information that we're being given. To start, a lot of people are under the impression that if they order as consumers from China, they're exempt from the tariffs, and that's just not true. And a lot of people think this because of what's called the de minimis exemption, which is a US trade rule that allows goods valued at $800 or less to enter the country without additional taxes and customs inspections attached to it, as long as it's shipped to the consumer. But that exemption was eliminated by the Trump administration, so it no longer even applies. Another thing that I feel like we're not talking about or considering enough is if these manufacturers that are claiming that they make products for certain brands actually do, or if they're trying to use the current climate as an opportunity to push their business and come up with a narrative to do so. And I'm not saying that all of these brands being mentioned don't manufacture their products in China. They definitely do. But I don't think the manufacturers making these claims are the actual manufacturers for these brands, because if you think about it, being so boldly open about who and what their clients are and pulling back the curtain on their manufacturing and pricing process would risk their relationship with their clients, aka these big brands and businesses that have an established business model and an established set of buyers, which means that they're probably constantly ordering in bulk from the manufacturers, and going on social media and spilling the tea would risk that relationship and potentially get them blacklisted from working with other big brands. Because while consumers can definitely buy directly from the manufacturer at the manufacturer price, which would still be cheaper than branded products, even without the de minimis exception, because you're paying taxes on a significantly lower price point, there are so many other factors that are involved in the purchase process, like the fact that, one, most manufacturers have MOQs, aka minimum order quantities, which is the smallest number of units a manufacturer is willing to sell in one order, since it's not really worth it for them to set up production and get things up and running just for one or two products. So this means that consumers would have to buy each product that they're potentially interested in bulk. Two, shipping can take longer because these products are coming from overseas and not from a US warehouse where it's sitting waiting to be purchased, which also means that returns on items can be difficult too, because you got to account for shipping costs back to an overseas manufacturer, which would be more expensive than domestic shipping costs. And that's even if they accept returns at all. And one thing that I think is really important that I didn't mention is the labor. Considering, if these manufacturers, granted, obviously the currency exchange is different, so the rate is different, but it just makes me question, and should make people question, if manufacturers are able to sell a product at such a discounted rate, how much are they paying the people who are putting these products together? And what type of conditions are these people working in? So it's you've got two choices. Buy the product at a cheaper price directly from the manufacturer with some of these catches I just mentioned considered, or not have to worry about those catches, but you make your purchase from the company at a crazy markup. You can't win either way, or, you do win in some ways, but at the cost of another. Well, that's all for this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. My name is Crystal, and I talk all things social media, so news, culture, and the occasional 101. So if this is interesting to you, hit that subscribe button because there's more to come. Till next time.